Hello, and welcome to the business edition of PM Express. My name is Philip Nanfuri. Today we're having a very interesting discussion on the youth and entrepreneurship. How do we merge these two areas, these two important areas of our economy? The government has been very active in the space of entrepreneurship development, but of course, we need to examine how we can ramp up these efforts going forward. And as youth, you and I, the young ones, how do we play our role in development of the nation and in entrepreneurship as a whole? I have two guests to help me do this. We'll break out the conversation down into two main areas. We'll look at the youth, then we'll jump down into entrepreneurship. So without further ado, I'll jump straight to my first guest. He's the CEO of the National Youth Authority. His name is Emmanuel Asigri. And I also have Kwabena Boateng. He's an entrepreneur. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on PM Express Business Edition. How are you all?
Thank you very much. I'm doing fine.
Very, very, very good. So Mr. Asigri, I'll start with you. National Youth Authority, you are the Chief Executive Officer. In 2010, a youth policy was launched. And if I'm right, the theme was towards an empowered youth, impacting positively on national development. We are in 2018. I'm sure maybe there might be some revisions or changes to this youth policy. I'm not sure. I'm sure as we go along, you might give us some good education. But just walk us through your views of youth in Ghana as a whole. I know this policy puts it in the age range of 15 to 34, if I'm right.
35.
35, thank you very much. So just your general views on youth in Ghana. Then I'll come to Mr. Boateng.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. General view of youth in Ghana. I think that the first area that I would want to touch on is about the numbers, where the current statistics indicate that the youth population of Ghana constitutes the majority. We're estimated to be around 28 million now, and about that number, we have a little over 16 million estimated to be within the bracket which you mentioned, 15 to 35. And so if you look at Ghana's population as we speak, it is defined as a youthful population. And it is not peculiar to Ghana. It is an issue that has to do with the entire African continent. And if you look at the demographics, for most of the countries within the African continent, they have similar situations like we do. And that's how come you would hear at the international front, people describe the African continent as a youthful one. So again, with these numbers, it should tell anybody that we are in an environment where you cannot take the development of young people for granted, because the workforce of the entire country, the continent, falls within this bracket. And so policies and programs that are being rolled out by the government of Ghana, targeted at youth development, should send a signal that because we find ourselves in this situation, that's how come the focus is put in this direction. And myself and others who head youth-related agencies, we also knowing that we have a very Herculean task before us, we have taken the challenge head on, and we've put ourselves together, and we formed a cohort where we are sharing ideas as to what are the interventions we want to put in place or are putting in place to addressing youth development challenges of our country. So if you ask me of my view or what it is I have to say about the youth, I think that for now, this is where I'll leave it as we go on. I think that the conversation will bring out more issues for us to talk about.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boateng, you are a business owner.
Yes.
You run a very good business. You say the youth are critical to development of the nation. Yet, when I go to offices, I see only old people. Correct me if I'm wrong. What's your view on the youth in Ghana? Where are we now? Where are we going?
That's a big question. Yes, I run a strategic marketing consultancy, so we do a lot of digital stuff. And I would say the youth are quite engaged in the development of this country. It's not all offices that have old people. I think traditionally we give a lot of credence to the elderly, but there's still opportunities for young people. And I still think young people can play a vital role in this population and should be given more space to do a lot more and the support to do it. So yeah, generally I would say there is scope for more to be done and for us to be equipped to do more. and to play a vital role in the economy. Yeah.
I want to pick you up on this. It's been argued a lot that sometimes the youth are apathetic or lethargic when it comes to national development. We seem to sit back, relax. Some are not interested in what's going on around us. We seem to be interested in more of pop culture and stuff like that. Do you share that view that the youth in Ghana particularly, let's not go even globally, particularly are removed from the national development process?
I do think the youth are interested in the national development process. I believe that the discourse sometimes in our politics gets certain people not to get involved in certain conversations, but it's also an incumbent on the youth like myself to also get involved, regardless of whatever view we have of our politics and our policies, because if we are not involved, then we'll be left behind. Others will decide on our behalf. So I would say that yes, there's more that we could do as youth to be involved, and also for our elders or politicians or policymakers, there's also more they can do to engage us. Popular culture would always be around us, so how can we use popular culture to actually engage the youth if that's what's getting people's attention? But generally, I would say that youth go to where there's fun or what's interesting to them. So let's make politics, let's make policy, let's make entrepreneurship engage into them, and then we can also get involved.
Okay. Mr. Sigri, on this very point, using pop culture to influence the youth, some would argue that when they put on their radios, they hear a lot of discussions on politics. They have no interest. They want to listen to music, they want to kick back, they want to relax. At the same time, they want to play a role in the nation's development. You have a bird's eye view when it comes to youth in Ghana because of where you work and the institution you head. How can we make the youth more relevant, or how can we put them into the national dialogue or into the discourse if they're not already in?
You know, sometimes it becomes confusing when the comment or the assertion you're making, which is not coming from you, but it's real. When you hear young people make these pronouncements that they turn on the radios, you have too much of politics being discussed. Who are the ones who are on the radio discussing the politics? The same young people, you know. But it looks as if it is a subject that is not, you know, going down with some number of our young people, and that's why they usually have an issue with it. Else, it is not a situation where you turn on the radios, you go on our televisions, and then you find older people like you describe where you say you go into offices. I mean, you see them on TV. There's a mix, but if you take into consideration the numbers, I think that the young people have taken the space, and it is so because we are the dominant force in our society now. So you wouldn't fault those who don't want to listen to what is going on with our political discourse, because I think it is not something that has been observed lately, but it's been around us for quite some time. So sometimes it degenerates into something else. I mean, I am one person who does political commentary on both TV and radio, and I'm measured with the kind of things I say. It is not enough for you to sit on such a platform and think that all you have to do, especially as a young person, is to denigrate people. And I believe that if you have people who sit there and they debate or speak to the subject matter without going on personal attacks, you know, taking people on in a certain manner, you know, you would have people wanting to listen or watch you the more. And I have people who meet me in public, they walk to me and tell me that they like my debate. And I know I have others like my kind. I detest the situation where you're on TV or on radio and all you do is to go with vulgar language, you go after people instead of dealing with the substance of the matter. And we've not been spared with this type of a situation. It is a reality we must face, that our political space has created this type of a situation where you have people think that that is where they have to do this type of a thing. Especially beyond just those of us who appear on TV and radio to speak to the political issues, but even with our supporters who make phone calls, sometimes the commentary, you know, and I'm not limiting this to one political grouping. It is something that cuts across, you know, the political divide. And I think that, like I started by indicating, the young people are the ones who find themselves as victims or corporates in this regard. And so we would have to shape this whole situation and make politics become more attractive to young people. Because, as it is where we find ourselves, we cannot but to assume a rightful role in our political discourse. It is not something that should be seen as a privilege. It's a right. We are the dominant force. Young people are the dominant force of our country. And so if we continue to sit and we allow people who don't fall within our bracket go in there and they take decisions or come up with programs that would not address our challenges, we are the ones to lose. And that's why I think that we should take our rightful place in there. But we have to do this with some sense that we are young people who are ready to take up the responsibility of running this country after the senior ones who are, leading us, so that we don't do things that will come eating us up in future. Because I have found people who, because of the way they've carried themselves, have suffered, and it is not limited to only this country. Even in the Western world, just from the way you carry yourself, you find yourself in the public domain and you are not welcome. If you look at what is happening to the current press secretary of the White House, Sarah Sanders, she goes to restaurants and they walk her out. They're like, you're not what's it called, welcome here. She's in the public domain and she's being ridiculed. And I have been following her, and I don't want to just say it is a Ghana thing. I've been following her, and I think that sometimes her comments don't appeal to people. And so we have some similar situations in our, with regards to our own case. But I would want to encourage the young people should continue to take their space when it comes to our political discourse.
So we should put in our all, but we should be measured.
Absolutely.
In how it's done.
Absolutely.
Kwabena, do you share, not to put you against him, do you share that similar view that some of us are a bit off on the right path, if I can put it like that?
I believe he said the young people are the dominant force. I would say that, well, the political sphere is controlled by a certain age group, if we look at our parliament, and then if we look at who's also financing. Let's be honest, the politics is finance, so let's follow the money. If we follow the money, then we'll then find out who's pushing the young people to speak in a certain way. So I think once we balance it out and realize that whoever's backing our young people to speak a certain way, then we can, things will be better. Because I feel like some young people believe that if they speak in that manner, or if they position themselves on these platforms in that way, then they can get ahead politically.
But sorry to cut you here, must it always be backed by somebody? Somebody can get up on his own.
Definitely. So individuals believe that if they speak in a certain way within this political discourse, then they will be noticed and then they will get ahead. So then, as you mentioned, the conversation denigrates and is not based on issues. So all of us, it's incumbent on all of us to bring it back to the issues and then find ways to communicate that is appropriate.
Okay. Mr. Sigri, I want us to jump into the youth policy. And this is not based on any scientific data. But I just asked a few people that, are you aware of the National Youth Policy? And people say, what's that? What's that? What's that? Do you think it's a problem? As the Chief Executive, do you think it's a problem, or coming from we the youth, or coming from your side? And when I say your side, I mean your entity as a whole in its existence as a government body. Do you think there's a problem there?
There is.
Okay. There
is. And I'm not putting this as a blame on any particular regime.
Okay.
It is a state issue. But I think that some reforms started even before I took over. And I must acknowledge that based on the statistics, like I've already put out there, governments, past government and present government had no choice but to look at, this issue which has not played well with the National Youth Authority in the past, to readdressing that. So in answering your question, the problem that I would say have affected what we were supposed to have been doing that would make the young people get to know exactly what it is that we stand for. Citing an example like the National Youth Policy, where you say you've done some checks, not based on scientific outcomes. I would dare say that even without any scientific outcomes, that is the reality on the ground, right? I mean, a chunk of our young people don't even know that there is a policy document in existence that should be a guide for us as a people or a group who should be looking up to what the policy document puts in place for our development. And like I indicated, you can't fault the situation. You have a national body that is supposed to be spread across the entire country, and you find our operations just limited to a section of the country. Currently, as we speak, we have offices in not more than 55 districts of our country. And even with these offices that I'm referring to, It is just in some cases by name that you have a National Youth Authority office in this district. You go in there and it's probably a security man or a secretary who is sitting there. Offices where we have full-fledged staff, we don't have more than 40 of those offices. But as I speak, thankfully, we are putting measures in place, and then by December 31st, we should find ourselves operational in all the districts of this country.
Okay.
We're using NAPCO staff, the NAPCO personnel, to serve as staff for our district offices, because we cannot, wait till when central government will tell us that you have the right to employ people to take up these positions. If we really want to take up youth development and make it a central part of us, this is the only approach we can get to getting this done. And so we have already worked it out, and we have numbers. As I speak, we have over 2,000 people who are coming, personnel who are coming from NAPCO, and the placement, we are in the process. That's why I'm giving myself up to the end of December.
Okay.
In the coming days, myself and my team, we are moving around the country to getting our offices ready for these personnel to move in and then get our activities run. And immediately we are done with that, from January, we have lots of programs that we're going to roll out for the young people of this country. And I believe you would see the impact, and the next opportunity you get to interact with me, be it on this platform or wherever it is, you would acknowledge that indeed what I made as a pronouncement here has come to pass. Because we are looking at what it is we have, we have with us. So we are not looking at something that we are assuming or imagining. We have the personnel, 2,000 plus have been given to us, and we are also putting the offices in place. And then we know that when this is done, with the review of the policy document which you talked about, when we have this new policy document in place, it would come in at a time where we would have set ourselves up in all the respective places that we are supposed to be. And we believe that is where we will then be able to reach out to young people who are far away from Accra, who should have the privilege of getting to knowing that there's a document that needs to be addressing their challenges and issues.
Okay. So you are going to spread yourself across, make sure that everybody's well aware of the NYA.
Absolutely.
Then we're going to see a revision of the document. Okay,
Absolutely.
I'll take a quick break now. When I come up from the break, I'll put Kwabena on the spot and ask him if indeed he is aware and familiar with the contents of the National Youth Policy. This is PM Express Business Edition. My name is Philip Namfuri. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back. This is PM Express Business Edition. Many thanks for your company and welcome back. Now, just before the break, we were looking at the moves by the National Youth Authority to spread its tentacles, if I can call it that, to other parts of the country to make sure that you and I are well informed about the youth policy and our engagement when it comes to national discourse or national dialogue. Just before the break also, I was going to ask Kwabena if indeed he is aware of the National Youth Policy, because to be honest with you, I didn't know we had one. I didn't know we had one till today. So, Kwabena.
Hi.
Are you aware of the National Youth Policy?
I wasn't until today. Until the engagement we had with the NYA, yes, until today. Yes.
Okay.
I think most young people probably don't know about it, and I think it's not just about the policy. Mm-hmm. Most young people might also be confused as to the role of the NYA, because we have a few other youth-focused organizations. So I would believe that there's a bit more engagement we can have with these organizations, and then also how can we also channel our issues back to them. So what is the process? Do we have to come to these offices that are going to be across the country? Do we do it online? Do we write? What are the channels of communication so that we can also liaise with them, and then we can work together?
Okay, I want us to move our conversation into entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneurship. I always hear risk it to get the biscuit and shape up or ship out, and many lines that point to the fact that it's risky running your own business, it's risky managing your own funds, doing everything. I want to start with you, Kwabena. As you started your business, we always read in literature. When I was in school, finance, they said when you're starting your business, capital is a problem, funds is a problem, you have to have some management skills and a lot of things.
Yes.
Is that the reality on the ground?
It definitely is. Capital is a big issue. I personally wasn't funded. I have two businesses. One is a clothing brand, and then one is a consultancy. And for the consultancy, capital had to come through our clients. So our first customer, we use that money to try and pay our bills and pay taxes and all those other things. So capital is definitely an issue. We can't go to a bank say, oh, we want to do digital marketing, give us money. And so you're either going to get investment. Most startups in Ghana get an investment from outside the country, or unless the government is creating these new platforms to get investment. I think knowledge also on how to really run a business can be difficult. I personally had to go and get trained by myself at a company, actually, InnoHub, through a program called Synapis, and then through another program funded by the German government called Impact. So knowledge and getting the knowledge how to set up is really important. So I believe that NYA and all NEIP, those organizations that give training, is very helpful.
And I'll come to NIP.
Yeah. And then I think also knowledge of taxes and what the government requires of you. Most young people, we haven't got a clue as to what is really required of us once we register with the company. Most people believe that they register and then that's it. We don't know what our tax obligations are, what our SNIT obligations are, and now that the government is going to allow maybe discounts for people under 35, most young people are either not aware of that particular policy, if it's actually gone through and been implemented, and how they qualify. So there's a big issue on education, and once you are in the entrepreneurship space, you're kind of stuck. You don't really know, you're left on your own if you don't approach maybe the organization. So those are some of the challenges I've faced, and it's been difficult. But
then you sit here with us, well dressed, you're fine, everything looks good. You make running the business look easy.
From the outside, it could look fantastic, but the reality for most businesses, and I think for young people's business, could be different. You have to kind of fake it till you make it, and you have to keep on trying. So you might try maybe going to get business from traditional, maybe public sector. Might not work, you try private, you try NGO, you're always trying different ways to make it work. It seems like in this country at times, it's not merit, it's who's visible. So that's also a challenge that businesses have. So I believe the government is also looking at a quota to give to young people and disabled people and women. So then that's good for people like me, because you might put in a proposal, and due to corruption, which is everywhere around the world, somebody might get that contract because they spoke to a procurement person. Okay. So those are some of the little challenges that we have as young business people when we go into the market to try and grow. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Asigui, yes, National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan was put in the 2017 budget. We are in 2018, 1 year down the line. I see that with regards to entrepreneurship development in the country, the government has made some strides. I think we should be fair in terms of putting in the right structures. We saw the presidential pitch, which was very, very good for young people. From where you sit, National Youth Authority, as part of a government agency, and with this NEIP, that's the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan, do you think all is well when it comes to putting in the right structures for entrepreneurship development in the country?
For me, if you ask for an assessment with regards to the period which all these have been put in place, I would say all is well. And then we are making some strides. I indicated that we as youth agency heads are working, in collaboration. And because of that, we happen to know what is happening at each other's agencies, and then we see how we can partner where we have to. The issues Kwabena raised came up along the line, especially when I took over. You meet young people who are young entrepreneurs, and then they tell you of their challenges, barrage of it. And then you sit and look at it. It's not one thing that, as an agency like NYA, we had the ability to say, okay, we could address these issues that kept coming. There were times I would go for programs on TV and radio, and some of these young people will see me and then accost me there. They will come with some of the things they want to show to me that they are really into, which they need some help, like coming with products. I remember this young man who kept on pestering me. He is into this detergent manufacturing. Then he comes, he needs to get his way to register his product. It's become a challenge for him and all that. Then so many coming to the office, wanting to know what role we could play. I mean, the few who are aware of what National Youth Authority stands for. Then we thought through it, and myself and my team decided that, look, we need to get these young people together and then bring the relevant agencies to see how they can address these things spot on, right there. And then we use that to also educate the young people across this country. So we came together with the Commonwealth Young Entrepreneurship, Commonwealth Alliance for Young Entrepreneurs, KAI, together to putting up a forum where we brought in industry players. The vice president was the one who came and then graced the occasion, and then he spoke about some of the issues government has touched on, which are interventions government is put in place for young business people. Then we brought in GRA, the Commissioner General himself, Mr. Kofinti was here, and we had it here, you know.
Accra Digital Center.
Yes, Accra Digital Center. Then FDA, the Chief Executive Officer herself, my own big sister Mimi Daku was here. The Registrar General herself was here. Venture Capital. Everybody, those who matter when it comes to the business, you know, the business world. And they didn't send representatives. That's the kind of thing we did, because we reached out to them. We went to them personally and pleaded with them that we wanted them to come in and address these issues, even though it didn't look like we didn't trust who they were going to bring here. And then they also saw the need. Looking at the constituency we're dealing with, they gave time and then came in. And after we had the session with the Vice President, they even stayed and we had a forum. I remember Registrar General set up a registration point here where others young people who were running their businesses and didn't know that there was a need for them to get their businesses registered, got themselves registered, their businesses registered, TIN numbers were created for people here, and then we had a very good time. We estimated to have 250 young people from across the country. We decided to do this to affect the entire 10 regions of Ghana. By the end of the day, we had a little over 400 people who came around, and we had space to accommodate all of them. We listened to their concerns after we had people to speak to the issues with regards to how businesses should be run, issues that confront businesses and all that. We were able to put these issues in place. And then, unfortunately, people like Kopna at that time, we didn't know how to reach out. I had a discussion with him. But we had quite a number of them, quite a number of his type who came, and they left here very satisfied. They keep coming, you know, and where it is that we need to get them go, they reach out to these areas. NEIP was represented. He even also had the opportunity to take young people through what it is that they stand for in terms of supporting young businesses. Okay. And out of the presidential pitch, and then they also had another program. Each time they were having a ceremony to probably close whatever it is that they had done, I'm always invited. And I must say that I was happy to have seen about 4 of the young people who participated at our Young Entrepreneurs Forum, you know, having been selected to benefit from some of the interventions NEIP spearheaded, you know, to enhance their businesses. And so I believe working in that kind of a situation where we are reaching out to other agencies and looking at what they're doing, because we see ourselves as the apex youth development agency and should not say that, okay, we have a turf we want to protect, and so for that matter, we don't care what others are doing, but reaching out, and then we also having that harmonious working relationship. It is helping in dealing with the youth development challenges. And it is my hope that in the coming year, like I've indicated, the programs we have, we will be able to reach out to other areas that we have not reached out, especially the informal sector. And that is one area that is so dear to my heart, because it is one area where when you look at what it is that is happening to our young people, it is not good at all. We think that we need to plug them from where they find themselves currently and put them into better areas where they can do things for themselves, for their livelihoods. I
want to pick up a point before I come to Kwabena. The informal sector. I see a lot of young people establishing businesses. Good ideas, fantastic stuff. But they seem to fall out of, for example, the tax net. So you find them in their homes, running the business from there, and it's a good initiative. They employ people here and there, but at the same time, as critical as it is for development, they need to be roped into the tax net. Yeah. Specifically, how do we get such young people into the tax net and maybe SNET as a whole? Because they have fantastic ideas. Absolutely. But it may not be intentional of them to run away from the tax net. How do we get them into this tax net?
Yeah, Philip, this issue you've raised comes back to the forum which I talked about. When we had, you know, young people coming to us with regards to their challenges, some of these things played out. We made them understand, look, you want to get yourself moving. You also have a responsibility you have to meet, your tax commitment. Even though there is a provision for young people who are running businesses to have some tax holiday, depending upon what it is they're doing. But it is not just completely, you know, tax-free. Other commitments are supposed to come in. You are employing people, you are supposed to take care of their social security and all that. Sometimes we take it for granted that because probably I'm running a business from my father's garage or from my home or from my small enclave, You know, I'm not obliged or supposed to be meeting some of these things. But when we got them to come together, and all these, you know, pieces of information we put out there, they got to realize what it is that is a responsibility from their part. And we are not just looking at it as a limited situation to the over 400 people we brought in here. You talked about the informal sector. Somebody sits somewhere and is running some small business, has someone who probably he or she is saying is helping me. Don't tell you that the person is an employee. We have processes that you have to take the person through to get the person understand, okay, I'm with you, I'm doing ABCD and supporting what it is that's making you get an income. And you are obliged to do ABCD too for my own welfare. And that is how come I'm saying that with where we are moving into now, that is where we will be able to reach out and then let the young people understand that once you you find yourself in a certain category, you are expected to also have some responsibilities you have to meet. And it is my belief that the way we started, as we move on, it might not be something that maybe in the next 6 months you probably get the results as expected in terms of maybe the huge numbers. But I believe we're going to be growing, you know, from time to time, so that within a space of a time we will be able to say that, okay, we'll be able to reach out to about 1 million young people who are into businesses and hitherto didn't know that they needed to categorize themselves in a certain manner to position themselves properly. Look, I have done a study with my PE, and it's coming up as one of the programs we're going to be doing in 2019. Some media outlets have even done stories on that. The coconut business. Okay. It is a lucrative area for young people. And I'm telling you that it is not limited to just a section of our country. Coconut sale now is across Ghana. I find myself in Tamale. I'm driving in the agric enclave, then I see fresh coconut. And I'm like, I tell my driver, stop.
And if I can just chip this in, I use coconut oil myself.
But I'm even talking about the fresh coconut where we have, you know, these young men by the streets cracking these coconuts and then selling to the public. Because I observed this from an experience I had from one of these coconut guys, where I stood to buy coconut and I was waiting for someone to bring me an item. So I decided to use that spot to wait for this person. It took the person about 45 minutes to catch up with me there. And within that space of time, I saw the number of people who, you know, stopped over to buy, those who were buying and taking away, those who were buying and then just having it there. And so I engaged the young man in a conversation. And it ended up in a manner where when I told him of what he could do to enhance himself, you know, he was stunned. And this thing came up as a conversation. And whilst I had this conversation with him, and then I kind of like opened his mind as to what he probably has not thought of, it also gave me that eye-opener that as the Youth Development Agency head of this country, we probably had not paid attention to that. The following week, I called my team and I said, look, I have discovered something that we need to do for the coconut people. And so there's a package that is coming up. We have to reach out to the assemblies first. Because I know when we start moving in there, we'll have this resistance where it is like, you are trying to, you know, project illegality where they're not supposed to be there and all that. We have these things across the world. You go to so many countries, they allow people to use some space to do some of these things, provided it is done and done properly. And so we, as an agency, we want to lead this pack, get to seeing how we can project that area. Because it is something that we cannot but to embrace. It is giving a lot of young people an opportunity, and we cannot wish it away. So we would come in and then lead these young people, give them some education, lead them into what it is they have to do to enhance themselves. Because this young person, when I engaged him, I was like, do you have a bank account? He was like, why am I talking about he's selling coconut and bank account? So then I told him, I said, look, you've been selling this coconut, you're selling one for 2 cedis. I've counted the number of people who've come here. Let's assume that you're doing even 200 Ghana cedis from morning up to evening. And then because you have no well-structured plan to say, okay, I'm living on a salary for my coconut sale, you're spending that on a daily basis. I asked him, would you spend more than 100 Ghana cedis from even your profit? He was like, no, the match I'll do is 30 Ghana cedis. And I'm like, so how much is your profit margin? So you see, the conversation went into detail. Then he realized that he's been doing this thing and has never thought about it. So this is something he could do to enhance his life. And the young man became so appreciative, and we kept the relationship. So I told him, I said, look, the conversation that ensued between us, I have used it to develop something. And when it starts, I'm going to use you as the one who brought this whole idea to me. And then we get this thing spread across the entire country. Graphic did a publication, I think, February this year. And they picked it from Koforidua, where the person who did that feature was just looking at, what's it called, the coconut business, and speaking to it or writing to it from the Eastern region or Koforidua standpoint. And like I've said, it is not something that is limited to a section of the country. It is all over. You go to Wa, it is there. You are in Bolga, fresh coconut is there. And these are things that I have seen. I'm not just saying because I'm assuming. I have bought fresh coconut, which hitherto some years back you couldn't find. You know, I mean, you couldn't find fresh coconut in Bolga. Probably the dry one, you know, is what you could get. So now we want to see what we can do. And these are some of the areas where, when we talk of the informal sector and what it is we want to do, I'm just using this as an example. Okay. But we have a lot of areas that we want to look at that we have.
And that's a key role government must play when it comes to entrepreneurship, business development. While I await my fresh coconut juice and my coconut oil from you, we'll take a quick break. This is PM Express, the business edition. My name is Philip Nanfuri. My guest, Kwabena Boat, an entrepreneur and the CEO of the National Youth Authority, Mr. Emmanuel Asigri. Thanks for staying with us. My name is Philip Nanfuri. This is PM Express Business Edition. Before we went to the break, we're looking at how entrepreneurship, with regards to the informal sector, how do we get them out there and put them in the formal sector to increase, for example, financial inclusion, to increase taxes, to have more people enrolled onto the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, that's SNIT, our pensions. All these things are good for our development. Now, I want to take Kwabena's thoughts on how entrepreneurs, because he's played in that space, he's one himself, how they fared when it came to establishing their business from the onset. Did they try and actively move into the formal stages of business, or they try to stay away from it? So, Kwabena, when you were starting your business, I'm sure you interacted with a lot of your friends and stuff like that. You have told us that you made an active push to get yourself into the formal net.
Yes.
You went for training here and there, you mentioned Germany and stuff. What do you see when it comes to entrepreneurs running businesses, which are good, but from an informal perspective?
I think most people run the business like my t-shirt business. I have a t-shirt brand called KOB. We do African-inspired t-shirts. And what we are most known for is this make fufu, not war t-shirt. So I started that 10 years ago. And I did what most people do. They get up, I started a business. You print the first t-shirt, you sell it. You get some money, you put it back in. If you even register with the Registrar General, that's it. So most people don't then follow up to go to GRA because they are scared, or they are not educated about what it will entail, or they are scared that it's going to cost too much, and they don't even go to SNIT, what more even tier 2. So it's a bit of fear and lack of education as to what will it really entail. And I think they think, well, I'm keeping it all to myself and I'm saving. But the negative aspect is that your business is not structured properly. So then you can't go for loans. You can't really get investment. So the business becomes a one-man business, and then people just stay small. So it becomes a very sustainable business, like a self-sustaining business. It's just me, myself, and then pa. So I think that's what really happens. So they just survive. It's a survival, sustenance kind of business. Okay. And that's why a lot of our startups or our informal businesses don't really grow, because of the lack of structure.
And sorry to cut you, that resonates with statistics I've read somewhere where it says 95% of businesses don't survive after a number of years. I'm not very clear whether it's 5 years or 10 years, but I think when you read entrepreneurship literature, SME literature, it's there.
They say like five years.
Yes, yeah. And it's there, and it's a given. Okay, I want to talk about culture when it comes to running businesses. If I was running a business, I wouldn't want you and you in my business. I want it for myself. Yeah. I don't want it to be part of my business. How do you think culture in Ghana, for instance, feeds into our business, just generically? I think it feeds into everything that we really do. A lot of people start businesses, and as you can even see from our business, people name it after themselves. That's the ones that are not limited. And so it's very self-centered, and how can it help me and my family? So partnerships also don't really, most people run away from partnerships. They want to own maybe 100% of everything. So yeah, our culture kind of limits people. People are scared of partnering because they feel like they'll be cheated, or they feel like they won't have control. Control is why people want to control. Mm-hmm. So I would say that yes, we can change our culture of owning little of nothing and really partner, go to banks, go to venture capital, whatever, and then let some of it go, then we can get the right people, the right resources to grow something bigger. Generally, Ghanaians don't like to partner with each other.
And I don't know. I think it's just
our mindset.
Yeah, mindset. I think it's a fear of losing control, or fear of maybe people cheating them, and feeling like they have to own everything, you know.
And just to add to what you're saying, I had an engagement with the Ghana Stock Exchange boss, Mr. Yamwa, and on the Ghana Alternative Exchange. It's an exchange where small businesses with potential for growth can list to gain some equity. But it seems the cultural mindset plays into this. Mr. Sigri, yes, culture in business or culture entrepreneurship, what are your views on it?
Well, my views would add up to what he's saying, where we find young people who, and probably not even limited to young people, it's become a thing where we don't like to go into what's called partnerships. And if you look at environments where partnerships have taken place, that's how come they're able to sustain some businesses and they keep themselves going. But again, the other part, when you talk about culture, what it is that comes to mind is about the way we look at business, especially in the informal sector. You have somebody who would have gone through formal education, gone through, finished first degree masters, and an opportunity is there for he or she. But they look at it and say, I can't go in there because of what it is I have acquired in terms of my educational status. Yet you are struggling to get yourself a place to exhibit what it is you claim you have acquired. And there's an opportunity for you. It comes on two sides. Sometimes with the persons themselves, and sometimes again pressure from home. I had a sad situation where a parent walked to my office one time, complained bitterly about his daughter who had finished university, and he wanted the daughter to get into some formal work, and he talked about bank. and I've seen bankers who run away from that and they're into, you know, the informal sector now, doing things that you wouldn't believe that they've left the banking sector they're doing. And then he talked so much, and I said I wanted to meet this young lady. He didn't know that he had talked to the wrong person. Because when I get such opportunities, I encourage such young people to take up what it is that they want to do. The young lady came to my office, and this is a young lady who had already made up her mind, and she thought she was going to get me also putting pressure on her to give what she's desired to want to do. So she came and sat before me, and I said, Dad came here to complain. What is it that you want to do for yourself? She said, look, I don't want to do what my dad wants me to do. He wants me to go into the formal sector. I don't want it. My desire and passion is this. I've been doing this. It's been giving me that. It's been helping me out. Stated that for some time now, the father was not taking care of her and all that. At the end of it, when she sat and narrated her story, she broke down and she was in tears. I got up and I had to calm her down. And I told her, you know something? You're talking to the right person. I'll give you all the support to get yourself going. Because I have a case of that nature. Not in terms of where I had anybody influencing my judgment in terms of what I want to do. No. But the passion for wanting to do things for myself, and that has kept me going till I found myself in this venture where I am now. So it is not an area where when people want to do things for themselves, want to go into the informal sector, you talk to me and I would want to say, don't get into it. So it is one area where I think is killing our young people. And I want to use this opportunity to indicate that if you have a passion, if you have a desire, if you have something that you have as a skill, that you think you can bring it out to enhance your life, irrespective of where you think that you find yourself. If you are not able to manage your life properly, rethink and then get into that space. Because like I'm saying, I've seen people who've left the banking sector and they're into clothes production. I have a very good friend who I'm doing greenhouse farming with. He used to be in the banking sector.
I also left the banking sector.
Absolutely. Now he's left. And because of what he's doing, he's all over the world. He just returned from Canada. He was sitting and doing his greenhouse technology. We're doing it at a town called Osui, around the Akuse area.
Okay.
And he had this opportunity to come to visit Canada and other countries to see the type of technology they have. Whilst he was there, he was sending me information as to a company in Spain where he bought their seedlings for tomatoes and used it. And now they've used him as a story. They are trying to get him. They want to come in and see what they can do to enhance his farming, his greenhouse farming here. Other countries have sent people. This young man I'm speaking of, most of the key embassies have direct dealings with him.
Okay.
The Dutch queen, the Danish queen or so was here, I think early this year.
Yeah.
He was one of the dignitaries who was invited to come to the embassy to be part of what they were having because of his dealings with the embassy. He supplies them with their produce. His produce is always at the shopping mall. And so this is someone who saw this. It wasn't easy with him when he started. And he's a very good friend of mine. He's led me into it. And we want to use that base as an area to encourage young people to looking at getting into that space, because it is a fertile area. It is a virgin area. When we sit here and we are told that vegetables are imported from, what's it called, Cote d'Ivoire and then Burkina Faso, what is it? Is it that we can't meet or we can't get avenues to do in some of these things? We have it. But young people sometimes think that I have all these things that I've acquired over the years going through formal education, and so I can get myself in there. Philip, at one point in time in my life, I used to sell guinea fowl, processed guinea fowl.
I like guinea fowl.
I used to sell processed guinea fowl to one of the major hotels in this country.
Wow.
And it gave me a life. I moved from there and I did smoked fish, salted fish, which is known as Kobe, different kinds. I did the export of it. And this gave me a life. I had nobody to go and account my life to. I was accounting it to myself. I get up and I travel to Germany, go to the market and then get my fish. Had market women who I had picked out, and then they were my people. They come and they know the type of fish I'm looking for. I'm looking for a Kobe. I'm looking for this one. I'm looking for that one. Before I even get there, I give them phone call and I'm telling them, on this market day, I'm leaving early in the morning, I'm getting there, trying and get the market women to group what it is I want. This is the quantity I want. You know, and it gave me life. It never changed me from who I have been and who I am. I have been the same person till date. So it is an area where I want to encourage young people that if you have a skill, don't sit there and then say you are looking for a job, running around with CVs. If you don't have it, yes, we all have our desires. And let's say you don't know where to turn around. Get yourself into some of these areas. You might be able to make a breakthrough from some of these things. And I have the belief that from where we are projecting youth development of our country, it will come to a time where young people will shun the formal type of jobs and want to run their own enterprises and businesses in this regard.
Okay. As we wrap up on our conversation, Kwabena, we are ending a fiscal year from a government perspective. Government has outlined plans in the 2019 budget, more for entrepreneurship development, private sector development. The finance minister alluded to the fact that private sector credit had increased, and then they had provided a stable macro environment for entrepreneurship development and the private sector development. Now, you as an entrepreneur, what's your outlook for the year 2019 for your business?
That's a huge question. I just want to make more money.
I like that.
And grow my business. So if anybody needs consulting, digital marketing, we can do it. But no, on a more serious note, I think at times when we hear the budget, most of us don't understand it. So, you know, breaking it down, coming to engagements like this so young people can understand it. And then I think for me, for the first time, I actually read the budget, and then I looked at where the money was being allocated. And then now I'm going to approach some of the organizations and businesses and bodies to see if I can get some work. So I think that's some practical advice I can give young people. Read the budget, look at if a field pertains to you, and then see where the country is going. If the government says they're going to invest X amount in agriculture, then you know that maybe next 2-3 years is an opportunity for you. If they say they're going to be doing construction of something or schools or somewhere, how can you also fit in? So I'm changing my mindset from just complaining and saying, this budget is bad, this budget is good, and then looking at how can I also get involved and plug myself in. And as you mentioned, the informal sector, yes, it's an opportunity. My wife, she's a farmer. She's done vegetable farming. Unfortunately, she slowed down because it's a bit difficult. So I think funding to start up with the informal sector, with farming, then we can make it sexy. And there's nothing really informal about the informal sector. You know, in other countries, nobody say this is the informal sector. It's just money. We're doing business and we're making money. So how can we get Ghanaians and young people, the youth, mindset to realize that, look, you could be doing anything, just do it well. You could be cleaning, you could be doing what, do it well. We get some support from government or private sector or wherever, an enabling environment which makes it easier, you know, and the mindset change. So if we as a people stop putting credence on people who are only wearing suit and tie, no offense to you.
I'll still wear mine though.
You know, then we can then realize that any job that you do can give you value and you can be proud to do it.
Okay. Mr. Segri, we have 2 minutes left. Wrap up for me, please.
Well, like we've said, we've dealt with so many areas in this whole discourse. It is my hope that young people of this country, myself and Kobna were just talking, and we're like, the mindset, even though initially it was not like it is now, it is changing, and people like Kobna would come on board, and those who have not come on board will also give themselves that opportunity to take advantage of what it is that is in place. Because we have a lot in this our environment. You know, if I want to sit here and then categorize or mention, it will be an end. Take the cosmetic industry. We don't have it in Ghana. what is the main commodity or the main thing that is used in the cosmetic industry? Fine, shea butter.
Yeah.
We have it in abundance in this country. I keep sharing this thing with young people. Let's take advantage. Form groups and then see how you can partner and at least target some small country. I have spoken to some South Africans and they've indicated that they get synthetic shea butter from China for their industry. It's only 5.5 hours to South Africa. If we want to get into that space, National Youth Authority is there. We will lead you through to getting into Ghana Export Promotion, Exim Bank, all the agencies that are relevant to seeing to you that you can establish yourself in this space. So we're in there to support the growth of our young people, and we expect that they would reach out to National Youth Authority and leverage on what it is that we have for the development of young people of Ghana.
Okay, thank you very much. This has been PM Express Business Edition. My guest, the CEO of the National Youth Authority, Mr. Emmanuel Asigri, and Kwabena Boateng. He's an entrepreneur. My name is Philip Nanfuri, and we've learned that you've got to risk it to get the biscuit. Goodbye.